So I'm watching the series about Madeleine McCann and just absolutely horrified and heartbroken when it they brought these private investigators in and they uncovered this huge ring throughout Europe and they were showed all the pictures of all the kids that had gone missing that this ring had that were advertising to each other for sex. And reading your stuff about elite people rings and Jimmy Savile, it all tied into that then because when you were calling Jimmy Savile out, people were laughing at you,
Yeah, of course.
but everything you said came completely true. So how are these elite networks structured?
Well, they're structured in the same way as the spider web is structured. In fact, they are fundamental. They run. It runs through the veins of the spider's web, if you like. It runs through the strands. I said earlier that when I start investigating these family bloodlines that are behind all this, invariably you hit Peter and Sam, and the two are combined, which really didn't surprise me when, as the revelations about Jimmy Savile began to unfold and unfold and unfold, eventually it was said that he was a Satanist. Peter and Satanism go together, and what the Savile situation was, because it came out in the public arena, it was a little doorway, and staggering, given that he was a record-breaking pedophile, staggering it may be for me to say, but it's true, a tiny doorway, because this thing is vast. I mean, we're going to go. We would go deep into some really deep esoteric things about why they want sex with children, but there's a reason for it. And the scale of it is absolutely vast. I was traveling America in the 1990s, from about 96, and I met a lot of people who were involved in MKUltra, the government CIA military mind control operation that came to public attention, but only a tiny part of it. And these were people, kids, who were taken into the project at a very young age, sometimes 5, 6 years of age. And then they were used mind control, basically mind controlled assets to do various things. But what happened within that whole MKUltra was this vast sex with children ring was part of it. And I've named them in my books a long time ago. People like Father George Bush was a notorious, on the inside, serial pedophile and torturer of children. And so many of these people were. And there is a global network. And, you know, I was helping someone in America once who'd lost their adopted twins to the system, who had given these adopted twins to a woman, a single woman, which was a crazy thing to do on the face of it for the benefit of the kids. And the kids weren't treated very well by this woman who was connected into this whole ring. So in doing that, I started to realize how many children went missing every year. And what I did is I called the federal government and I wanted figures for the number of children went missing every year. And they said, we don't keep them. You tell me how many cars went missing and tell me how many children went missing. They said, you're going to have to ring every state. So I started ringing every state. I don't know, I got to about 10 and 15. And I'm in such a figure by then of children going missing. It was staggering. So you see a story like Madeleine McCann, and what people do, and I do understand it, they get a feel for how many kids go missing and are never found by how many missing kids stories end up in the media. That is so tiny, it's almost infinitesimal compared with the kids that go missing. And then I was talking to a Zulu shaman in South Africa, Credo Mutwa. he starts telling me that one of the biggest problems they're having in their area is children going missing. Children are going missing all over the world. It's a stunning thing, and they get tricked out to famous people for and other abuse, and you realize the scale it's going on. But again, you're into that chasm between what's happening and what people think is going on. So they think, oh, it's so fantastic, that can't be happening, it's happening. And a lot of them end up dead in the end. I was the one, of course, that came out in The Biggest Secret, which was published in 1998, and named Ted Heath as a and of course it took 17 years for his name to then hit the public arena for and this goes into the very top of society. The ratio of pedophiles and Satanists in the upper echelons of the societal hierarchy is vastly greater in the general population. It's a lot in the general population, but in the upper level, the ratio is ridiculous. And so you look at the Savile story, and it was that window. So I remember Jimmy Savile as a kid, and he was a disc jockey. They called him a disc jockey. He was a strange man. He had this white hair and all that stuff. And he became Jim will fix it with kids and everything, and he was a strange man. Then he kind of disappeared. And he got old and old and old, and what happened to him? But it turns out that even though he had no obvious income stream after he dropped out of being a famous so-called entertainer, he had houses all over the place. He had loads of cars. He had a Bentley and all this stuff. Where's the money coming from? What was lost in the revelations about Jimmy Savile is the reason that he got away with it. He was a procurer of children for the rich and famous. That's how he got away with it. And they had to watch his back to watch their own. And so he would provide children for these rich and famous people. This is why he was on very friendly terms with Ted Heath. So then you look at the other area of that Savile story that's never been explored, which absolutely should be, and it is this. In Savile's own words, in the 1960s, Lord Mountbatten, a known people, invites Savile, who's a disc jockey, into the heart of the British royal family. It's how he became a close friend of Prince Charles, a close friend for a long time until they fell out, of Prince Philip, and in the inner circle, including the Queen. Sorry, banging that. And he remained in that inner centre of the circle, the inner circle of the royal family, right up to his death, basically, and a friend of Charles right up to his death. And I met a lady. In fact, I met her in a house I lived in just down the road from here. She came over to the Isle of Wight, spoke to me for a long time, who was a long-time friend of Princess Diana, friend of hers for about 9 years. And she told me about Savile. She told me about Savile because Diana had told her, and she knew from other sources as well. And she described how when Diana was married to Charles, that Savile was always all around all the time, and she thought he was sleazy and horrible and could stand him. Well, the reason he was there, let's put this together. He's at the inner core of the British royal family circle, and he's a procurer of children for the rich and famous, right? Now let's take another step. I remember seeing a film, just very quickly, a report, that the Queen was making a visit to this place. And this guy came up, and he's in the crowd, and he's going to protest, right? The security services knew he was there and came across. They knew he was there. They knew he was going. They knew he was going to be in the crowd. And you can't cough anywhere near the Queen without the security forces know about it and special branch know about it. The police clearly knew, because they interviewed him a number of times, that Jimmy Savile was a pedophile. And he's allowed into the inner circle of the British royal family, and special branch and MI5 are not screaming, what's going on? He's a pedophile. What are you doing allowing him in there? No, he's allowed, while being interviewed by the police from time to time over pedophilia, to be in the inner circle of the royal family. Now, here's another one. Anyone thinks that's the coincidence?